This is Yvette Carnell from yourblackworld.net and breakingbrown.com, and I am joined by the host of the Ben Dixon Show, who is actually the newest member of the Your Black World family. Welcome, Ben. Welcome.
Thank you.
And what we want to talk about today is we reported on Your Black World today that in terms of Haiti, we all know after the earthquake, the reconstruction, the rebuilding effort, we all know about that. And we know that billions, as a matter of fact, there was $500 million donated to the Red Cross for this rebuilding effort. But what we learn now, thanks to another NPR report, is that basically the people got 6 houses out of that. That's a whole lot of money. I know some rich people who build 10, 20, 30, $100 million homes and penthouses, but that's a lot of money, especially when you're talking about Haiti. Now, I'm going to ask Ben, but I just want to say the first thing that came to mind for me when I thought about this, and I don't know whether everybody out here read this. I don't know whether Ben read this, but a while ago there was an article by novelist Teju Cole. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Called I think it was the white the white. It wasn't the white industrial complex, but it was about it was basically about this sort of thing where where white people or the powers that be kind of have it all wrong in terms of how they go about fundraising and how they go distributing money and the ways in which they kind of act as basically overseers and not see how they kind of play into this by their policy, by their foreign policy, by how we deal with them, and we just kind of look at it as, well, we're going to give these people some homes and money, but that didn't even happen here. They didn't even get the charitable gift. So what was the first thing you thought about, Ben, when you saw this headline, when you saw this?
You know what? Sadly, I wasn't surprised. Because recently, well, not recently, I say about 2 years ago, an article came out discussing the exorbitant administrative fees that the Red Cross takes from all of their donations. I think it's something like 75%, 75 cents on the dollar that they take out for administrative fees. Now, I don't know if they hit the 500 million with that large of administrative costs. I did read in the NPR article that they were, before this fundraiser, they were in the hole 100 million. So
wow.
Out of 500 million, you can guarantee the first 100 million went to cover their budget deficit, and then take into account their administrative fees. I'm just not surprised, but it is pretty disturbing considering that was an unprecedented amount of money that they raised, not just for emergency relief, but based on the promise that they were going to help rebuild Haiti, and all they rebuilt were 6 houses.
I mean, it's sort of amazing when you think about it, right? It's sort of amazing when you think of Haiti. Like, Haiti isn't even America in terms of the amount of money it takes to build a lot of homes for a lot of people. So when you think about all of that money, and it really is egregious in terms of how they did it. Now, you were telling me before we did this that part of this has to do with how the funds were dispersed in the management, right?
Right. So in the NPR report, they discussed that most of the projects that were actually embarked upon underneath the auspices of the Red Cross were not actually implemented by the Red Cross. They were outsourced to smaller agencies. And as they began to research it further, they realized that there was very poor accountability, very poor management, and a lot of touting of successes that couldn't be measured or quantified. They're saying they did a lot of stuff, but there were actually no results to show for it. And then when you think about it, you add on additional administrative fees and expenses every agency that gets involved. So after the 75% that the Red Cross potentially took, you also have a fee, the administrative fee that these other agencies took, and ultimately Haiti lost out. Everybody made money but Haiti.
Well, it sort of reminds me when I think about it of what we were talking about in the run-up, what a lot of us were talking about in the run-up to Obamacare, right? You had a lot of people on the far right saying, oh, no, we're the best country in the world. We have the best healthcare in the world. Look at the Mayo Clinic. Well, the Mayo Clinic is pretty good if you can afford it. It's great. But the thing that people kept saying that kept sticking out in my mind is, the efficiency of it. And when you look at the amount that private healthcare spend on administrative costs, it's really not that efficient at all. It's not more efficient than a lot of countries that have what they call the boogeyman of sort of socialized medicine. So that's what I think about when you think about, oh, give money to the Red Cross. They'll do it more efficiently. I mean, they'll get it right. You know, and you look at that and no, they didn't get it right at all. It was just like a double down of administrative costs. And when I go back to the whole Teju Cole thing of the article, I think it was called the White Savior Complex. That's what it was. I tend to wonder if there's not a bigger issue here, right? In the sense of a lot of Haiti's problems and a lot of problems in what people call, and I hate the term, the third world, third world countries, are caused by, it's not just the man-made disaster. I mean, it's not just this disaster right here, this disaster of nature. There's also the disaster of, people, Americans love to give money to the Red Cross, but they don't understand that, like, our foreign policy is part of what creates these disasters or allows them to happen or puts these countries in a position to where when something does happen, they can't really do anything. So what do you think about the way that Americans, what do you think about the way that we deal with this sort of thing? The way that we think we can just give $5 at the checkout when we leave the Kroger's or the Safeway and just like donate $5 to the Red Cross or whatever and think that we've done something.
Right. So we put our trust. We really put a lot of trust, and it's starting to be obviously unwarranted trust in these international agencies that are that we believe are going to do the job. So all that we have to do is give $5 and look away. But in reality, when we give that $5, we give that $25 or whatever we give. It's being sucked into a machine. It's being sucked into a capitalistic machine. Granted, it's a nonprofit charity, but they still operate with the mindset of moving dollars where they need to move it for their own personal benefit and for their bigger goals. So we lose sight of accountability, and we don't take extra care and concern to see that the dollars that we send are actually being used. Because, I mean, when we give $5 at the register or $1 at the register, we kind of just feel like we've done our duty and we move on, and we don't hold these agencies accountable. But at this point, with the magnitude of loss in this issue, the Red Cross really has to be accountable. They have to come out with a new level of transparency. And if they did everything according to the book, by their book, then their book has to change, or else we as the collective body politic, we need to no longer give money to these large organizations when there are a lot of small charities that actually go to, like you said, the third world or the developing nations and do a lot of good, and they're starving for resources. I mean, some of them would love to get 1% of what they're offering, of what the Red Cross got.
I wonder about that though, because you think about it and you think about what people always say about everybody has this thing now. It's 21st century. It's 2015. It's like, oh, the Red Cross is a brand. And you think about nurses in white caps with the little crosses across their hats, and they're running around in war-torn areas taking care of people. And I just wonder, like, and I look a lot, and I'm just not talking about the Red Cross right now. I'm talking about a lot of stuff in terms of, I just wonder how we kind of get to a point where we can overcome, like, even when you talk about multinationals, you can say people can say like the Koch brothers are doing X, Y, and Z to us, or they're kind of pushing for a libertarian America, but they own so many companies that it's hard to take on these things because these are like Goliaths in terms of, and we're and here we are trying to take on this stuff, trying to take on the Red Cross to be accountable and reliable, and what we're finding is that we're just machines. We're just kind of cogs in a wheel for these for these entities, to make money for the people who are on their boards or whatever. So I'm just wondering, like, I mean, how do you, and just your opinion, get to a point where you can kind of be like, you know what, we need to. How can we make people aware, or should we make people aware, or how do you do it? Like, there is something else to do. There's another way to help Haiti. There's another way to do everything. There's always another way to skin a cat. But how do you get from point A to point B?
Right, and so that's the difficult part. So I think we are in an age where we absolutely can hold the Red Cross accountable on a large scale. I mean, social media, one trend on social media can really have a big impact on the Red Cross. But I think the second part of your question is, how do we then channel that to smaller agencies that may do more productive things and may be more efficient? that part, I honestly don't know the solution to that. There, maybe I'm sure the internet and like the Kickstarter and different things like that could play a role in it. But it's really going to be incumbent on the smaller charities to really get ahead of, get in front of technology and let technology push and social media push their exposure, especially at times like this. Like right now is the perfect time for an agency with a good track record that doesn't have 75% of administrative costs, that really produces for every dollar they see some productivity. It's a good time for them to come out front. But until they do, people will kind of, like you said, machines in the cog, just give that dollar to the Red Cross, and the Red Cross, every disaster, they're going to raise $100 million, $200, $500 million. And a lot of people are getting paid off, and the people who need it the most are being hurt.
Well, I just wonder too. It's disheartening in a racial way too, right? Because it's disheartening because I wonder, and I'm just gonna put it out there. I mean, I don't have any problem, telling the truth and shaming the devil. I just wonder if, I don't believe in the devil. I'm sorry. I'm just for everybody who's listening. I don't believe in the devil. I don't believe in anything with horns except bulls and different. But I digress. The point I'm saying is, I wonder if this tragedy had happened to, in Czechoslovakia or a corner of Russia or, any of the bloc countries or any of, in any European country, even a poor Slavic sort of nation or whatever. I kind of wonder, and I think I know the answer to that, but I just kind of wonder, would you be allowed to get away with, building 6 homes and collecting $500 million? It's just like we when you look at what's happening in America in terms of race and police, it's just like on a global scale you get the same crap. On a global scale you basically get shook down so that it looks like, now I don't know, we'll see. I'm sure the IRS, I mean the Red Cross will have something to say about this. I'm sure the IRS may have something to say about their nonprofit if they're going to keep doing it that way. But at what point are we able to say, oh, we're not going to get shook down like this, and we're not going to put up with organizations, people, nations that just kind of use us as their piggy bank?
That's the most disheartening thing about it. You see it on an international scale. People of African descent are still being pilfered and plundered. Even money that's being given on our behalf. They've taken from us for generations, for hundreds of years, and now millions of dollars are coming in from all around the world, from white faces, brown faces, yellow faces, but that money is still not safe. And so I think you pose a really poignant question of, if this had been in a Slavic country or a white European descent country, would this have happened? I honestly don't think so. I think, and it's not because Haiti is incapable of holding them accountable. I just think that the people at the Red Cross would have held themselves to a higher standard. And I think a lot of times we are overlooked. We're overlooked and intentionally sometimes, and unintentionally. It's just the perception that, oh, they'll be okay, or we don't have to dot every I and cross every T with regard to these African nations, these people of African descent, rather. And so it's really disheartening, and it reminds me of the incident in France where you had, I believe it was 19 people killed, and the entire world just
they went crazy.
And then, not even a week later, you had an African descent nation where, 200 students were killed.
Yeah, I remember that.
Bodies laying everywhere, and
that was in Kenya, right? Wasn't that in Kenya?
It was Kenya or Nigeria, and I'm trying to look it up right here. I think it was Nigeria, and I could be wrong. If I am, I apologize to the listeners. But you saw all of these students murdered, massacred, and no one so much as batted an eye. No one. There was no march.
But you know when they will bat an eye? You know when they will bat an eye, Ben? When there's a white person at the head of the organization. Because remember the Joseph Kony? Remember he was the invisible children in the Uganda. He was gonna get the big bad Joseph Kony. And so now, like, if there's a white head at an organization, like, it's almost as if in terms of the white savior complex, if there's a white person at the head of the organization that's going to kind of swoop in on a white horse and do good charitable work, then all of a sudden people care. because it's almost as if black suffering has to be rubber stamped by a white person in order for other white people to say, "Oh yeah, that's something we should really care about. We should really care about that because there's a good white guy who's here." You know, what is that?
You're opening up a Pandora's box. I don't know if we can pull out of it, because the very next thing that pops out to me in this conversation is even connected to the narrative or the stories that are told about black suffering. We see it in Hollywood that the successes of movies, they're successful. They win Oscars if they are based on a white person being the hero of the story. And we saw that with Selma. When we are in charge of our own narrative, when we are in charge, we're going so far off from Haiti, but I think
it's still true.
When we are in charge of our own narrative, our own destiny, our own country, we are often taken for granted. And we see that whenever those same stories are told in the life of 12 years a slave, you know, in overseas, the picture was not of the, and I cannot pronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try, of the gentleman, the black gentleman who played the slave. It was of Brad Pitt. You know, that's what they portrayed. And so there's a real dilemma that it's the last vestiges, hopefully it's the last vestiges of white supremacy, but it's their inability to respect black leadership, black narrative, and the control of our own destiny. And I think we see this in the Red Cross incident, that they absolutely would not have wasted $500 million if this had been in a nation that was not of African descent. There's no way in hell that would not have passed the muster on any level in the administrative parts of the Red Cross. So in that regard, they should be ashamed of themselves, and they need to be held accountable for it.
I agree. I'll let you have the last word. But I just want to say, you were talking about the white saviors in the movies. A friend of mine was telling me just a couple of nights ago that he saw movies about some Sudanese brothers over here, and the lead character was a white woman who spent the movie basically just telling them, "You all got to get your stuff together," and kind of teaching them how to be American or whatever. So that's what jumped out in my mind. I had never heard the movie. I have to put that in the notes or something so everybody can check it out. But I'm going to let you have the last word, Ben. You got anything else you want to say about what needs to happen here?
You know what absolutely needs to happen is that we as people of African descent, and even some of our European brothers and sisters that may be listening, we need to seek out smaller organizations that are constantly in these nations, that are constantly doing work year in and year out, and not just these agencies that are going when in times of disaster. I think the Red Cross played a part, did its thing at a certain time, but right now there are just too many organizations out there, and we need to become more educated in it and make sure that our $1 at a time and our $5 at a time is powerful. And so we should be accountable. We should make sure that we look after where those dollars are going and hold those agencies accountable. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, good. And once again, everybody, this is Yvette Carnell from Breaking Brown, and this is Ben Dixon from the Ben Dixon Show. And we will talk to you later. Appreciate it. We're out.